Merry Backstage Noble Wife, the story of America's favorite family of the Footlights and of their fight for security and happiness against the concrete heart of Broadway. Yesterday, Mary, Harry, Calvin, and Pop convinced Greg Marlowe that their next theatrical venture should be a straight play rather than the magic show Greg had suggested. And now, a short time later, at the Backstage summer home in Skunk Haven, we hear Mary...
Well, it's nice of you to be open to suggestions, Greg. I thought that you had your mind all made up on doing that magic show.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd make you change your mind that quickly, Greg.
Well, listen, you have to have an open mind when you're a producer. I mean, you have to listen to opinions from all kinds of people, get all kinds of ideas. Listen, I know that I'm not omnipotent. I can make mistakes like anybody else.
Well, I haven't seen you make too many of them, Greg.
No way. I haven't ever known you to make any mistakes, Greg.
How about that TV series that went 2 days, Mary and Harry? That was Greg's idea.
Well, the idea was good. You see, what happened there was the people I had on the TV show, and I don't mean to infer that you were the cause of it.
Oh,
I just don't think you were right for that time of day, you know?
How about that special, that African safari you did, and came back and didn't have any viewers at all?
Well, you know, here again, it was a great idea that just somehow was never carried out properly. The filming was... well, not the best.
Well, you did the filming, Mr. Marlowe. If you remember, you handled the camera.
And it should have been, of course, in color. I think,
well, there were a lot of things wrong with it, of course, but...
Look, isn't that Calvin?
Yes, he's mowing the lawn of the mother of him. I thought he was...
He's mowing ours at the same time. He's doing both yards simultaneously.
I'll thank him for it. Thank you, Calvin, for mowing our lawn simultaneously with yours.
What do you mean? Does your yard start here?
Why, of course.
Well, we always thought this was our yard.
Oh, no, that's our property there, Calvin.
Well, wait, let me come in and discuss this with you.
Yes, sure. Excuse us, Greg. We do have to work this thing out, I think, between Calvin and us. I'll get it. About it, Calvin.
Yeah, well, hey.
Why, what's the matter, Calvin?
What do you mean? I'm not mowing your yard.
Yes, you were.
No, sir. Our yard starts down at the corner.
No.
And clear right up here to about 2 feet from your back porch.
No, I'm very sorry, Calvin.
No way,
your yard
Calvin,
stops about 15 feet over there by that maple tree.
Oh, no, sir. We have the papers right on. Listen, the mother
we
of
have
me...
the papers, too.
The mother of me was living here when they put your house up, when they dug the cellar for your house.
That makes no difference.
He knows exactly where our land goes.
Well, I know exactly where our land goes, too, young man.
Well, we've been paying taxes for it. You people have been enjoying it.
We've been paying our proper taxes here in Skunk Haven.
I've been mowing that lawn, and that's my lawn.
Why didn't you tell him earlier, Harry, that he'd been mowing your lawn all these years? Well, it was a way to get the lawn mowed. I didn't see any reason. I thought he was doing it as a favor to us.
Well, I'd like that. This is my yard. I'm going downtown and see an attorney. I'll sue you for everything you have.
And so, in the midst of their discussions about their upcoming theatrical career, Calvin throws a bombshell into the proceedings. And you'll want to be here tomorrow when we'll hear him say,
"Yes, sir, everything you've got."
That's tomorrow in the next exciting episode of Merry Backstage Noble Wife. Word Carr speaking.
Now I'm sure that we're all in for a pleasant few moments because I see our old friend, Ralph Flinger, has just come into our studio here. Ralph is the dapper gentleman who's better known to most of you as Mr. I Know Where They Are. And he's actually made a career of keeping in touch with old-time celebrities who are no longer in the spotlight. Ralph, you'd be surprised, really, I think, how much mail continues to pour in here from people who want your help in locating their forgotten favorites.
Well, it really warms my heart to hear that, Ray.
You don't have to talk so loudly.
You know, most of the celebrities of bygone years that I keep in contact with have very little left now but their faded newspaper clippings. And I'm sure they're delighted to know that a few people still remember them.
Well, judging by our mail, they still have legions of fans, Ralph. This letter from a woman who listens down in Alabama is typical of those we receive. She writes that she was taken to a number of county fairs back in the 30s where the star performer was a man named Fernando the Magnificent. And she remembers that his act consisted of walking across hot coals in his bare feet. And she wonders whatever became of him.
Land sakes, Fernando the Magnificent. I hadn't thought of Fernando since I got his card last Christmas. Incidentally, his real name was George Putler.
He just called himself Fernando the Magnificent.
Well, I thought that might be a stage name, but I wasn't sure.
Yes, a firewalker named George Putler probably wouldn't have made the big time at all, but as Fernando the Magnificent, he was quite successful. Of course, he never got to play the Las Vegas hotels or any place indoors. The hot coals he used in his act tended to burn holes in the floor.
Yes, I can see how firewalking would be strictly outdoor entertainment.
Huh?
But I can see how that would be outdoor entertainment. Where is Fernando the Magnificent now?
He sells neckties in a small man's store in Seattle, Washington, Ray. He's almost 80 now, and he wears bifocal glasses and a hearing aid, but he still calls himself Fernando the Magnificent. Imagine the name confuses a lot of his customers who think he's always been a necktie salesman.
Probably so. But it's good to know that he's still healthy and making his own way in the world.
Huh?
You're talking louder today and you're not hearing me so well. I wonder if, have you had your ears checked lately?
No, I haven't, Ray.
Uh-huh.
Next, Mary Backstage, Noble Wife. The story of America's favorite family of the footlights and of their fight for security and happiness against the concrete heart of Broadway. Yesterday, as Calvin mowed the lawn, an argument developed over the boundary line between the Backstage property and their next-door neighbors, the Hoogevens. And now it's a few seconds later, Calvin has returned to mowing the remainder of the lawn as Mary, Harry, and Pop Beloved watch him through the screen door.
There he is again out there. I've never seen Calvin get so upset over something as really silly as this.
Well, he's working off some of his anger there. It's quite an argument we had. It's funny this problem hasn't come up before over the years, isn't it?
Well, we never mentioned that he was mowing our lawn. We always, he assumed he was mowing his own lawn.
I know. That's our lawn you're mowing there, Calvin.
Well, we'll find out about that. We'll let the legal authorities determine who owns this lawn.
Well, he's still pretty upset, Harry. Yes, I guess he is.
Why don't you come out here, Pop, and rake up their clippings?
Well, it's not my lawn.
No, it isn't your lawn. I think if anybody should rake up the clippings, it should be you, Harry.
Well, I suppose I should. It's our lawn, isn't it?
Well, I don't know, to be honest with you. I really don't know whose it is. I'm so confused now. I know that Calvin isn't born to tell fibs or lie.
No, but I have been positive that that's our property over these many years. Calvin, you want me to rake up the grass?
Somebody's going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Until I find out for sure legally whose property it is.
Well, maybe I should wait until we find out legally. I've got a map upstairs. I suppose I could dig that out, and we could maybe decide that way.
Well, we must have something in the strong box at the bank that would determine, that would show us, the plot outline.
Well, an exact line. Then there'd be no argument.
You know, you can always go to the county seat, to the register of deeds. He can tell you who owns this property.
What's that, Calvin?
You can go to the county seat.
Well, you can go to the county seat, too, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I just might do that, or determine exactly who owns this property.
That's probably correct. What happened?
Well, I
must have run over a stone or something,
What's
Calvin.
the matter, Calvin?
Wait a minute. Oh, here.
What? What is it?
Well, just under the surface of the ground.
Yes?
A big box.
A box?
Nearly tore up my lawnmower.
Oh, come on, we'll come out and look at it. Come on, Mary.
Yes, let's go see what it is out there.
I'll go with you, too. Want to see what this is. Well, what kind of a box, Calvin?
Well, I don't know. I just going to try to lift the lid off here and see what's under it.
Give you a hand, Calvin.
All right.
Yeah, I'll help, too. Boy, it's heavy, whatever it is.
Whoa, boy.
And so as Calvin mows the lawn between his house and the backstages, the lawnmower runs over the corner of a heavy box. What's inside? We may learn tomorrow when we'll hear Calvin say,
I gotta go home. The mother of me wants me.
That's tomorrow in the next exciting episode of Mary Backstage, Noble Wife. Word Carr speaking.
Here's another letter. Maybe I ought to raise my voice a little. Addressed to Mr.
Don't need to yell at me, Ray. I can hear you.
I thought maybe you weren't understanding me. Maybe if you sat at the other side of the table and read my lips, too, it would help.
All right, let me just get up and move around there.
It would help. All right. Now, here's another letter addressed to Mr. I Know Where They Are.
That's much better, Ray.
Good. It's from a man in Utah, and he's wondering whatever became of his boyhood sports hero, Slammin' Sidney Borcherding.
Goodness sakes alive, Sidney Borcherding. You know, they called him Slammin' Sidney because he won all kinds of championships when miniature golf was popular back in the early 30s.
No, I didn't know that. In fact, I don't believe I've heard of Sidney Borcherding.
Oh, I'm sure you have, Ray. He was a top pro in miniature golf until the fad began to die just before World War II. Of course, it was called Pee-wee golf or Tom Thumb golf in those days. You remember that?
Yes, I remember the game. I just don't remember Sidney Borcherding. Do you know where he is now?
Yes, I certainly do, Ray. Sidney lives with his youngest daughter in Palm Springs, California. Actually, his older girl has more room at her place in Oklahoma City, but her husband never got along too well with Sidney.
I see. So Sidney lives in Palm Springs, and he's retired now? Is that it?
Well, he's virtually retired. But he still invites some of his old cronies to come out there every winter and take part in the miniature golf tournament. It's called the Sidney Borcherding Desert Classic. You probably follow it in the sports pages.
No, I don't think so, but at least we've answered.
I'm going to come around and sit where I was. I think it's better.
Okay.
Next, Mary Backstage, Noble Wife. The story of America's favorite family of the Footlights and of their fight for security and happiness against the concrete heart of Broadway. It's moments after yesterday's episode now on the lawn between the Backstage home and the Hoogevens, their next-door neighbor. As Calvin, who has just hit something in the ground with his lawnmower, stands back to observe that it's a big...
I really hit this like a mile a minute. It really tore up the blades on the mower.
All of this rain we've had recently must have forced that box to come to the surface, I guess.
Well, look here. This is a very big box.
Yeah, it certainly is. Must be about 3 feet long by 2 feet wide, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it is, and it's hard to see how deep it is. It looks like one of those old treasure chests you used to see in the movies.
It's heavy. We certainly can't budge it until we dig around it, that's for sure.
Do you have a screwdriver there or a hammer handy?
Yes, here's a hammer and a screwdriver.
Very good.
How'd you happen to have those, Harry? I was doing some repair work downstairs earlier this morning. Had them in my overalls here.
Let me just see if I can get this lid up.
Try this corner over here, Calvin. Looks like you could put that screwdriver under there and loosen her up.
Wait a minute. Before I go any further, we want to determine who owns this. I say this is my chest because it's on my property.
Well, I say quite obviously it's mine. It's on our side of the property line.
Let's not get into another argument on that. We're all friends. Can't we just straighten this thing out? Let's open up the chest and see what it... Suppose it's just a bunch of sand in there. Then would you want it?
That's right. Then you could have it all.
Not necessarily. I wouldn't want it then. But suppose we open up and we find there's a lot of valuables in it.
Like jewels and emeralds, diamonds,
things
money.
like that. I mean, I don't want to... Well, I suppose I could share it, but if it is on my property... Really?
We haven't ascertained that yet, Calvin.
But, I mean, for years I've been mowing this lawn.
I know you have.
I even had a garden out here for a couple of years. You never said anything. I just assumed it was our property.
Those were good tomatoes you grew, too, and cucumbers.
Yeah, they were. Those were nice. Those nice big...
And it was nice of you to invite us to partake of some of those vegetables that you grew.
All right, well, let me see what's in this thing anyway. The mother of me does say, though, I asked her, and she said it's our property.
Well, I'm afraid I've got to see it on a map.
We can determine it by going over to the county seat and checking with the registrar of deeds over there.
Right.
See, they would have a...
I think you got it loose enough to open, though. Give it a lift there. A little more. Can't quite see inside there yet. Hit that corner a couple more times, Calvin. That's it. It's stuck there.
Oh, my.
Can you see what's in there, Calvin?
Oh, boy. There's everything in here.
What do you mean by everything?
There's money. There's diamonds, there's all kinds of jewels, there's silver, there's gold coins, everything.
And so Calvin announces the contents of the chest as gold, coins, jewelry, and everything. And you want to be here on Monday when we'll hear Mary say,
No, it's definitely our property.
That's Monday in the next exciting episode of Mary Backstage, Noble Wife. Word Carr speaking.
All right. Let's see, we have a letter here from a woman in Florida. She's wondering about all the stories we've seen in recent years concerning heart transplants. She says that a doctor in her hometown of Tallahassee was performing operations like that more than 50 years ago. But now the medical world seems to have forgotten that, and also that he pioneered the transplant. And she's wondering whatever became of Dr. Haven Dunlap.
Oh, my. That name does bring back memories. Dr. Haven Dunlap was the first to transplant a number of vital organs, including the heart. He also discovered antibiotics at least 20 years before anyone else. I think he got streptomycin by scraping the loose rubber off old inner tubes and then refining it somewhere.
Well, he certainly sounds like a man ahead of his time. Whatever became of him?
Well, it's an unfortunate story, Ray. Of course, it eventually came out that Haven Dunlap was a quack who never went to medical school or had a license to practice, so all of his discoveries are pretty well discredited.
And I suppose he went to the Slammer?
No, he went to Central America and established a medical practice there. Haven's almost 90 years old now. His patients are all poverty-stricken, but he writes me he's still able to clear about $500,000 a year.
Well, that's truly remarkable for a man his age who shouldn't be posing as a doctor at all. So I want to thank you for stopping by to tell us about him and some of our other favorites of bygone days.
Not at all, Ray. I live in the past anyhow, and it's nice to be able to share it with someone. Goodbye.
Next, Mary Backstage, Noble Wife. The story of America's favorite family of the Footlights and of their fight for security and happiness against the concrete heart of Broadway. On Friday, while he was mowing the lawn between the Backstage home and his own, Calvin discovered a buried chest, which he, Mary, Harry, and Pop pried open to discover it was full of treasure. Now they're taking the chest into the Backstage kitchen as we hear Calvin say.
Well, I don't know whether it was wise to bring it into your kitchen rather than to my own home.
Well, you know, we'll be fair about this thing, Calvin.
Well, it's just as if it ever comes to legalities. I just don't know. Maybe because we open it here in your house, maybe the adjudication forces would give you, ownership.
Maybe you set a precedent, you mean, by coming here instead of taking it over to your house.
I would, have admitted that it belongs to you rather than to me by coming into your house with this huge treasure chest, rather than going to the house of the mother of me.
Well, all right, let's take it over to your house then, Calvin. You grab that end and...
Oh, forget it. It's too heavy. We're in here now, and,
let's look at it again, all of that treasure. It's so beautiful.
Let's open it up here. That is a sight for sore eyes, isn't it?
Certainly a squeaky cover on it.
Let me just reach down into some of the...
Boy, I like to play with jewels like that. I guess it's a childhood thing, but look at those coins.
That's pure gold, isn't it?
I think so. And
Let
these
me
are pieces of 8 here.
Look at these diamonds. Look at them sparkle here in the afternoon sunlight as it comes through the kitchen window.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And look at that rich stem glassware. Isn't it a wonder that didn't get broken? Sure is. What's that over there, a stopwatch?
Who would ever put a... Let me see if it works. A stopwatch.
Well, that certainly dates the chest. It can't be too very old. How long have we had stopwatches?
Let me see it. Let me hear.
Yeah, it's working.
And I don't understand, because this coin here is back in the 1800s.
Uh-huh.
And it stops. It's fairly accurate. 14 seconds ago.
Huh. Can't imagine why that would be in there. Mary, are you enjoying all of this treasure?
Well, I have a nagging suspicion that we should call the police. Somehow or other, when I see this much money, I just know that somebody
knows where it is and somebody rightfully owns it.
Yes, I thought of that myself.
Look at that, isn't that beautiful gold?
You could be in some kind of danger, you know, if they come back and find it's been dug up.
Well, look at it this way. Supposing some crooks, some gangsters, some robbers, thieves,
Footpads.
some bad people, fogle hunters, if you will.
Yes.
Buried it here. They'll come back looking for it, and they'll be as mad as wet hens if they see that we've pried it open and have started to use it or spend it.
We'd better call the police. And so Mary, Harry, Calvin, and Bob seem to have second thoughts about keeping the treasure they discovered in the lawn between their two houses. You want to be here tomorrow when we'll hear Calvin say,
I think I'll take this little diamond trinket home to the mother of me.
That's tomorrow in the next exciting episode of Mary Backstage Noble Wife. Word Carr speaking.
Auspices of our Bob and Ray Public Service Department, you are privileged to have us present another in a continuing series of Bob and Ray editorials today.
Now, these thought-provoking expressions of opinion are offered periodically.
So with us today is Mrs. Naomi Glessbinder, who will be speaking on behalf of the Bob and Ray organization, as well as her own group, the BNYBC.
Beautify New York, but cheaply. Many civic groups have offered plans to beautify New York that would cost the taxpayer an arm and a leg. We feel that spending money alone will not solve our city's problem.
Excuse me just a minute,
please.
Just
throwing money at the problem.
I forgot to state that the opinions expressed by our guest are not necessarily those of this radio station or its advertisers or members of their family.
Well, now, what you have to throw that in for? All I said was that spending money alone will not solve our problems.
Right.
Now, how could anybody disagree with that?
Well, I didn't mean to imply that anybody disagrees with what you've said so far, but of course, we don't know what you plan to say later on, and the legal department makes us read that disclaimer.
Well, it sounds to me as if you're trying to give the horse laugh to my whole statement even before I had a chance to begin.
Oh, no intention of that at all. I've already said that you're speaking on behalf of our Bob and Ray organization. That means we agree with you in principle. So go ahead.
Well, all right. One city beautification plan that was recently put forth calls for the eventual destruction of all ugly buildings in New York. Obviously, this would leave nothing standing on Manhattan Island except Central Park. Therefore, the BNYBC wishes to offer a counter-proposal that would be far less costly.
Hate to interrupt again, but I was also supposed to say that you are appearing, Miss Glessbinder, under the provisions of Section 315 of the Federal Communications Code, and that all opinions expressed are with your full understanding of that section.
Well, now, what are you trying to railroad me into with that? I don't have a full understanding of any laws at all.
No, you're not expected to. That's just another thing the lawyers ask us to read, so you can go right ahead.
Well, you certainly make a person nervous with all that boilerplate and gobbledygook.
Well, I'm sorry. Just continue with the editorial, okay?
I'll try. The BNYBC is firmly convinced that New York can be beautified quite cheaply just by changing the names of our streets. There's something inherently ugly about a name like First Avenue, Second Avenue, and especially Third Avenue. Therefore, we strongly recommend that First Avenue be changed at once to Magnolia Lane. Also, our plan calls for making Second Avenue into Brook Tree Terrace, and Third Avenue into Winding Canyon Drive. Now, this type of thing has been done in a number of tacky suburbs with excellent results. And our group estimates that the total cost for new street signs in the city would be less than $500.
You've been listening to an editorial opinion.
Will you clam up? I'm not finished yet.
Well, you don't plan to rename all the streets in the city right now, do you?
No, I just wanted to mention that the Empire State Building can be greatly beautified by changing its name to Lazy River Lodge.
Just let me close by saying we recognize our responsibility to grant equal time to qualified persons with opposing viewpoints. Ray, you care to add anything?
No, I think this may have been recorded earlier, though, for broadcast in this time period, but I'm not sure about that, so let it go.
That does it then. This editorial has been a presentation of the Bob and Ray Public Affairs Department. No portion of the foregoing material may be rebroadcast or reused without specific written consent of the Commissioner. Thank you.
Next, Mary Backstage Noble Wife. The story of America's favorite family of the Footlights and of their fight for security and happiness against the concrete heart of Broadway. Mary, Harry, Pop, and Calvin looked at their treasure chest full of jewels and money until late that evening. treasure chest found by Calvin as he mowed the lawn between the backstage home and his own. Now, it's about 11:15 as Calvin begins to show signs of tiredness.
Well, you know what? I'm getting kind of tired just staring at all the glistening here, all the gold and the silver and the diamonds and everything. I'm getting heavy-lidded.
Yes, and we'd looked over just about everything. There certainly is a rich treasure. It's too late to call the police, don't you think, Mary?
Oh, yes, 11:30. They wouldn't want to be disturbed now. I wouldn't want a police car coming up with the lights
No, right.
rotating and
That's what I
blinking
was-
outside the door.
I have an idea. Why don't we close the cover on the chest? Calvin, you go across to your house.
Yes, sir.
Mary, you and I and Pop will stay here. Pop, you're welcome to stay over. And in the
All
morning, we'll take a fresh look at everything.
There, I'll just close it up tight as a drum. And, as soon as I get it down.
Didn't seem to take that long to
Yeah.
open it.
And, we'll leave it right here on the kitchen table.
Right.
And I'll head home, and we'll meet what time? Around 9 o'clock?
Oh, I think 9 o'clock would be good. Sure. Is that all right with you, Pop? Fine with
It's
me.
about right. I like to get up about 8 or 8:30. Maybe I'll set the alarm for 9.
All right. Good idea, Mary.
Very good. I'll set mine for about 8:45, so I'll be over here promptly at 9 o'clock.
All right. Sleep well, Calvin. Maybe
Thank you.
Maybe you'll dream up some ideas of what
All
we can
right.
do with the treasure. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
It's that time.
It's 9 o'clock, Mary.
Well, I had a good night's sleep. Now we can go downstairs and make our decision on what we're going to do with all that treasure.
Come on, Pop. 9 o'clock. He's in the guest room there. I guess he must have heard the alarm clock, too.
Sure.
Calvin, are you down here?
Well, he said he would be over around 9. That gives him a few minutes before he gets here. So,
What a beautiful morning, huh?
isn't it lovely? There is something nice about summer.
Hello there, folks.
Oh, come on in through the screen door there, Calvin.
All right, I'll come right in. Door.
Well, we're all here except Pop.
Yes, sir. Everything is all set. You know, I fell asleep last night dreaming of our newfound wealth, and I said that,
I'm glad you're using the word our newfound wealth.
Well,
Our, meaning it
just-
belongs to both of us, Calvin. I think that's a pretty fair way to look at the whole situation. What's the matter? Well, come on out with it, Calvin.
Well, didn't we leave the chest here on the kitchen table?
Yes, of course we did. We closed the chest. You went over to your house. We went to...
Well, where is it? Where's Pop?
So, as Mary, Harry, and Calvin join forces at the backstage kitchen, they find the chest is missing, and there's no sign of Pop. You want to be here tomorrow when we'll hear Mary say,
Oh, there has to be some logical explanation.
that's tomorrow in the next exciting episode of Mary Backstage Noble Wife. Word Carr speaking. Next, Mary Backstage Noble Wife. The story of America's favorite family of the Footlights and of their fight for security and happiness against the concrete heart of Broadway. It's a few seconds after yesterday's episode now at the Backstage Kitchen, the Backstage home in Skunk Haven, Long Island, as Mary, Harry, and Calvin have just discovered that the treasure chest Calvin found and Pop Beloved are both missing. And we hear Calvin say,
You know, I'm truly dumbfounded. I don't know what to say.
I don't either.
I can't believe that Pop Beloved, our dear friend, would just steal that chest of valuables.
Well, now, wait a minute. You're jumping at conclusions, Calvin. Pop isn't here, obviously, but you don't know that he did take the chest.
Well, you don't even know but what somebody might have come in during the night and kidnapped Pop and took the chest away. And
Yes, another possibility. Mary, have you looked around to see if Pop might have left a note somewhere explaining his
Yes,
disappearance?
I looked in the guest room, and the bed has not been disturbed, so he didn't go to bed even last night.
I thought he was retiring about the time we did.
That's really a hard thing to figure out. I do know that Pop has always denied himself everything. He's never been a flashy dresser or frequented expensive restaurants.
That's true, but he's hinted at different times that he does have a little money saved by, and that he wouldn't be a burden on anyone should he have to look after himself.
You don't suppose maybe he feels that he might like to convert all this into cash and have a final fling in life. Do you suppose he might have
You
done
mean all of the jewels and the treasure that Calvin found, Mary?
I thought.
Wouldn't be like Pop, I don't think.
Well, of course it wouldn't be like him, but here's the evidence. It's circumstantial, of course.
It's all circumstantial.
He's gone, and the chest is gone. The bed hasn't been slept in, and he's denied himself every luxury all his life. Maybe he sees this as an opportunity to just go out and kind of live it up.
All right. I think we're running off the deep end here. Let's call his apartment in New York City, first of all.
His apartment is just a room.
Well, it's a room. He does have a phone.
A walk-up. He's on the 3rd floor.
We may just find that he's there and he can explain everything. I think we owe him that, first of all. Certainly.
Oh, definitely.
Well, that's a good idea, Call. We can see.
2.
Talk to him.
It's one number I've remembered over the years. Pop Beloved's phone number in that dingy little room off Times Square that he's lived in for so many years. It's ringing now.
Any answer?
Not yet, no. Because Pop is getting on, you know. He doesn't reach the phone as quickly as he used to.
This is just another... It's all circumstantial, but he apparently isn't at his room either. He's probably on an airplane to Brazil or something.
Oh, no. Come on, Calvin. I don't think Pop is that dramatic about anything. I'll bet he's within a few miles of
The phone
Skunk
company says 6 rings, and nobody answers. That's about it.
Probably not there. Well, it's rung at least 6 times now. 7 or 8, I would say.
Yes,
I'd like to give him the benefit of any doubt.
Probably on his way to Brazil.
Oh, wait.
Hello?
Hello. Oh, am I glad to hear you, Pop.
Who?
Is this Pop Beloved?
Are you nuts?
And so, a high point of dramatic excitement as Harry thinks he's reached Pop Beloved at his room in Manhattan. But apparently hasn't. And you want to be here tomorrow when we'll hear the voice at the other end of the line say...
Yeah, I think you're nuts.
That's tomorrow in the next exciting episode of Mary Backstage Noble Wife. Word Carr speaking. Did you get the mail I saved for you from Friday with the suggestions about what new production the Backstage you should go in? Mm-hmm. What did you think of them?
Well, I give it some thought.
I thought one good one there was a revival of 10 Nights in a Bar Room.
You do?
Huh?
You do think so?
Yeah, well, I thought
I'm glad you know the
kind of humorous.
I really don't know. 10 Nights in a Bar Room was suggested, was it?
Yeah. Music Man, I think, was another one.
Let me see some of these.
Next, Mary Backstage Noble Wife. The story of America's favorite family of the Footlights and of their fight for security and happiness against the concrete heart of Broadway. Mary, Harry, and Calvin are trying to track down the disappearance of the chest of treasure found by Calvin, as well as Pop Beloved, stage doorman, who has disappeared along with it. And yesterday, Harry tried to phone Pop at his small rented room in New York City, and it's a few seconds later now as we hear... Oh, it's ringing now, Mary.
Oh, that's good.
Calvin, maybe
he'll be there.
Solve the whole thing right now. Hope he answers. They've rung twice. Certainly should be there. Oh.
Hello?
Pop. Oh, it's good to hear your voice again.
Hello?
Is this Pop Beloved?
Are you nuts?
No,
I'm not Pop Beloved.
No, this is Harry Backstage, Broadway star. We're trying to reach...
You know where that little deadbeat is?
Well, what do you mean?
I mean, he hasn't paid his rent for this room here for almost 9 weeks.
Well, you know, it must have slipped his mind. Are you the landlord or something?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if it slipped his mind, but,
Well, you see, we've been taken up with a lot of adventures the past 9 weeks. We were captured by Captain Wolf Larson. We spent some time...
you tried to give me that cock and bull story about being down to the Tortugas.
That's right, the dry Tortugas, and then up to Mexico.
Quite an imagination, that old gaffer.
Well, when did he tell you all of that?
Just the other day.
Oh, then he has been into his room then, since we got back.
Oh, he was here a couple of days ago, and then he said he was going out to Long Island. Well, I don't believe a thing he
Well,
says
that's
after
true.
he gave me that line of baloney here.
No, he did come out to Long Island. We were sitting around the porch when Calvin, he's our next-door neighbor, Calvin Hoogovan, he was mowing the lawn, and he ran the lawnmower over a chest of treasure, which we dug up. I know this sounds like a silly story,
You people been into the cooking sherry or something? What do you think I am? I was born yesterday or what?
Look, will you do me a favor, will you? If you see Pop, will you give us a call here in
If
Skunk
I
Haven?
see him, I'll grab him by the neck because he owes me, as I say, for 9 weeks. Are you a very good friend of his?
Yes, a very close friend of his.
Oh, well, maybe you would be a real good friend and pay his rent.
Well, I tell you, I'm out of work at the moment, and in fact, I've got to find a job probably by next week if I can. In the meantime, we're trying to find Pop Beloved.
Well, I don't know. Listen to you and listen to that guy Beloved. It's a side splitter. You ought to go into showbiz, you people. You got some imagination.
What's he saying, Harry? What's that?
But I tell you, I would like to get some money because,
wait a minute.
I can't run this place on goodwill.
Who are you talking to on the phone?
Some real money.
I'm talking to your landlord.
Real,
hello there, landlord.
Hello?
Yes, Pop is here with me now. I just turned around and he's come into the house.
Oh, that little deadbeat there? Well, look.
What's he say, Harry? Says you're a deadbeat.
Tell him that I want that rent money. I want it pronto.
He wants his rent money. He wants it pronto. Well, tell him I just got back from a 9-week series of adventures, and I haven't had enough money.
Why don't you put that deadbeat on the phone? Let me talk to him.
No, there's no time for that. We've got other things to do now that we found Pop. We've got to find the owner of the chest of treasure.
Well, look, you tell that buddy of yours, that Pop Beloved, that all his clothes, and that's not too many, I'm going to throw out on the sidewalk today unless I get that money.
And so at least half of the mystery is cleared up to this point. Pop Beloved returns to the backstage home, and you'll want to join us tomorrow when we'll hear Calvin say,
Well, let's go in and pick up the clothes on the sidewalk.
That's tomorrow in the next exciting episode of Merry Backstage Noble Wife. Word Carr speaking.
And now it's music time here in the old Bob and Ray Show. And for your afternoon listening pleasure, we're going to swing out now to Chatsworth, New Jersey for the haunting melodies of Captain Hubert Werner and his orchestra. Direct from the promenade deck of the excursion boat Nancy J.
Yes, indeed. This is Buddy Blodgett speaking to you from the good ship Nancy J. as it rolls gently over the waves of the West Branch of the Wading River near Chatsworth, New Jersey.
Just docked at the Pinecrest side, all ashore that's going ashore.
As you may have heard, the captain and part-time orchestra director of this river-going palace, Hubert Werner, has just informed the passengers that we've put in at the Pinecrest dock after completing our voyage from Chatsworth. And Captain Werner, you're moving back to join me at our Bob and Ray microphone. It's a pleasure to have you and your musical group entertaining our radio audience today.
Well, thank you very much, buddy. I'm very happy to have you broadcast our haunting melodies from the promenade deck as we steam back and forth across the West Branch of the Wading River. And I'm sure all the members of the orchestra join me in bidding you a most cordial welcome.
Well, it's very kind of you to say that, Captain. When you speak of all the members of the orchestra, I assume you're talking about those two guys sitting on that little wooden platform up above us there?
Yes, that's the promenade deck there. And for the dancing pleasure of all the passengers, we have Monk Schreiber on harmonica this afternoon, and Wally Rainbolt doubling on tenor sax, clarinet, trumpet, French horn, oboe, and mandolin. I play the little toy piano myself. That's about all we have room for up there on the promenade deck.
Well, speaking of the size of the promenade deck here on the excursion boat Nancy J., I think you've raised a point that our listeners would be interested in hearing about, Captain.
Well, I'll be glad to answer any question you may have, buddy, but if you'll excuse me for just a moment first, I see we're just about to begin our next voyage. Would you wait right here?
Sure. Captain Werner has taken his position at the stern.
All aboard!
He's rolling up the gangplank, and I can feel the deck, yes, beginning to move beneath my feet as the captain slips into his dinner jacket and hurries up to the promenade deck. Here again, if you're listening to Dancing Pleasure, Captain Werner and his orchestra.
Chatsworth side. We just docked at the Chatsworth side. All ashore that's going ashore.
Now, Captain Werner, as you may hear, is informing his passengers that the Nancy J has just completed its voyage across the West Branch of the Wading River to the Chatsworth side, and he's rejoining us here at our microphone. Captain, it might be a little difficult for your orchestra to play for dancing, the dancing pleasure of passengers up on the promenade deck when the Nancy J makes such short trips as these, huh?
Yes, in a way, buddy. The river is just a little too wide to jump across at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So the good ship Nancy J ferries passengers back and forth between Chatsworth and Pinecrest. And the guys in the orchestra only have about, 6 or 7 seconds to complete a haunting melody.
Well, that would rule out the minute waltz or any of those longer tunes, huh?
That's right. We try to stick with the lively, upbeat numbers. That way people riding the ferry can get in 5 or 6 quick dance steps before we dock at the other side.
I suppose that could be possible. Of course, some people might wonder why you do have dance music on the promenade deck when each voyage only lasts 6 or 7 seconds.
Well, operating at this location, we almost have to offer entertainment, buddy. That's a free bridge, you know, just about 50 yards up the river from here.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of doubt whether people would pay to ride across on my ferry boat unless we offered music for their dancing pleasure on the promenade deck.
Well, even so, I notice you don't have too many passengers.
Well, if you have any questions about that, they'll have to wait for just a minute, buddy. We're about ready to begin our next voyage.
All aboard! Well, I see the captain is returning to the promenade deck now, and as he and the orchestra prepare to swing into the strains of another melody, this is Buddy Blodgett bidding you a bit of a fond farewell and returning you to our New York studios.
Mary Backstage, Noble Wife. The story of America's favorite family of the footlights and of their fight for security and happiness against the concrete heart of Broadway. Yesterday, as Harry was trying to contact Pop Beloved at his rooming house in New York City, Pop arrived at the Backstage summer home in Skunk Haven. And now, a few minutes later, Harry hangs up the phone, and we hear Mary say,
"Oh, well, we had no idea where you were, Pop.
We didn't see that your bed had been slept in or anything."
We thought maybe, well, no need to
Well,
go
I'll
into
tell you,
that.
I just couldn't sleep last night, and then I began to think about the House of Toast and how long it's been since we checked on how the business was doing, so I went down there.
Well, how is it doing?
Just fine. Neil is doing a great job. Neil has moved in here. I guess you didn't know that. He told me he'd be home in a few minutes.
Oh, really? No,
Neil?
I had no idea. What room is he sleeping in?
I don't know. The master
Be up in the
bedroom, maybe.
attic, I guess.
Well, it could be. Did you say anything about Harry Jr.?
Wait a minute.
What?
My wallet. Wait a minute.
What about your wallet?
My wallet. I had it when I came in here a little while ago. I got a few dollars in there, my driver's license, a couple of credit cards. And,
You sure you brought it over when you came over from your house?
It's routine. When I put on my pants in the morning, I put my wallet right in my hip pocket right away. It's automatic. It's like, it's like driving a car. Once you start doing it, you do it every day.
Hey, whatever happened to the chest of treasure that was there on the kitchen table last night when I left?
What's that bulge there in your pocket, Bob?
Disappeared. What's that?
What's that big bulge there?
That's my pipe and pipe tobacco. See, here it is.
There's still a pretty big bulge there.
Well, let me see what it
Doesn't
is.
look like the shape of a pipe to me.
No, that's the morning newspaper.
Well, you wait just a moment.
What?
Are you? Let me understand. Are you trying to say that you think Pop has taken your wallet?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, you can't be suggesting that, Calvin.
Well, I mean, I had it when I came in.
Are you certain you had it when you
and
came
he's
in?
standing around here looking very lumpy. So
Well, I showed you what I had my pipe and tobacco. This other lump in the other pocket is an order of toast, buttered on the far side. I brought home from the House of Toast.
Okay. Well, then I'd better retrace my steps. Probably I dropped it coming over to the house.
Could have.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, someone's at the
Oh,
door.
look, here's a lump back here. Have you checked that one, Pop?
That's my handkerchief.
Oh.
Always carry that in the back pocket.
Hey, it's a very thick. How big a handkerchief is it? Made
Oh,
out
it's good
of
size.
canvas or what? It must stand out 6 or 10 inches.
Calvin, someone's at the door. I wonder if you'd answer it.
What?
Someone is knocking on the door. Will you answer it?
I didn't hear anything. I'm just so upset losing my wallet, I can't even see
Oh,
things.
you'll find that if you retrace your steps.
Well, who are you?
Who is it?
I don't know. It's a perfect stranger to me.
Maybe it'll solve the question of where the treasure chest went.
Who are you, sir?
Invite it in.
Who are you?
And so, as our friends sit talking in the kitchen of the Backstage home in Skunk Haven, Calvin welcomes a stranger, and you'll want to be here on Monday when we'll hear Mary say,
Oh, here it is, Calvin, and Pop's bag.
That's Monday in the next exciting episode of Mary Backstage, Noble Wife. Word Carr speaking.
Search for Togetherness, the touching story of people just like yourself who struggle to find happiness in a small Midwestern town where the steel mill has been closed permanently. As our scene opens today, young Dr. Honeycutt is in his furnished room upstairs above the cafe where Agatha is employed part-time. He has just finished closing his suitcase when Delbert Bushcroft enters on his way home from the bottled gas company.
Ah, Dr. Honeycutt. Glad I found you in. I've just calculated what my living expenses will be after my forthcoming marriage to young widow Shipley. I'm afraid that I'll have to raise all the rents in this rooming house, including yours.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned it just now, Bushcroft. I was just packing up to leave Roaring Falls. I think it's all for the best. The young widow Shipley brought up the subject of marriage last night, so I've decided to move my practice elsewhere, and I won't be needing this room.
It's interesting you should bring that up, Doctor. I just stopped by to tell you that the rent on your room is going to be up to $14 a week. However, I won't make the increase effective until the 1st of next month.
Well, that gives me plenty of notice, so I'd have to say you're being more than fair, Bushcroft. However, I imagine I'll be in the state capitol by the 1st of next month. See, that's where I plan to set up my practice after I leave Roaring Falls.
I find that the most interesting thing you've mentioned, Doctor. The young widow Shipley and I will be moving to the state capitol soon after our forthcoming marriage.
Oh.
Maybe we could all get together over there some evening.
Well, it's awfully kind of you to mention that.
That's the least I can do, Honeycutt. After all, I'm raising your rent by a full $3 a week.
Oh, don't give that a second thought, Bushcroft. We're all caught in a scramble to make ends meet these days. Besides, I'm moving out of this room anyway.
Well, I'm terribly sorry to hear that, Doctor. Would you reconsider if I didn't raise the rent a full $3 a week? Let's say something more on the order of $1.50.
No, that really wouldn't change my mind. I've decided it's time for me to be moving on. As you may know, I've been seeing a good deal of the young widow Shipley lately.
Yes, there's been some talk around town.
Oh, I'm sure there has. Actually, I've never looked upon it as anything more than a passing flirtation. But last night, the young widow Shipley brought up the subject of marriage. So I decided to move my practice to the state capitol.
Really? I've never been to the state capitol. However, I'm planning to move there soon after my forthcoming marriage.
Well, I think you'll like the town. It has a bit more of a cosmopolitan air than Roaring Falls.
That's what I've heard. And that's the principal reason I'm taking the young widow Shipley there to live soon after our forthcoming marriage. She's had a recent unhappy affair of the heart here in town, and, well, even though she claims it was nothing more than a passing flirtation, I think a change of scenery would do her good.
Well, it's interesting that you should bring up a subject like that. I'm moving to the state capitol for the same reason.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe we could all get together over there some evening.
Well, that's awfully kind of you to mention that, but, two's company, three's a crowd. Unless, of course, you happen to know some eligible young lady in the state capitol you could fix me up with.
No, I'm sorry. I've never, ever been to the state capitol. But it occurs to me that you know at least one eligible young lady right here in town, Honeycutt. Maybe your best bet is to stay in Roaring Falls.
I'd like to, Bushcroft, but I'm afraid it's out of the question. My rent here has just been raised, and I can't afford to pay it.
Really? I'm sorry to hear that, Doctor.
And so Delbert Bushcroft has at last begun to show concern over Dr. Honeycutt's financial problems. But how will the young widow Shipley react when she learns that Honeycutt can't even pay his room rent? Perhaps we'll find out in the next episode. Join us then for more exciting drama on Search for Togetherness.
Next, Mary Backstage, Noble Wife. The story of America's favorite family of the Footlights and of their fight for security and happiness against the concrete heart of Broadway. On Friday, Pop returned to the Backstage summer home, but with no explanation as to the whereabouts of the chest of treasure found by Calvin. And as we left our friends, there was a knock on the door, and now Calvin opens it. And we hear... Who is it, Calvin?
I don't recognize him.
What do you mean?
Why?
You don't recognize me, Neil?
What? It's Neil.
Oh, Neil. Well, you've let your hair grow, haven't you?
Hey,
Yeah,
Neil,
sure.
how are you?
Everybody lets their hair grow nowadays.
Yeah.
Nobody gets those, sideburn jobs.
Oh, those crew cuts and things like that.
Spare tire things. Oh.
Well, sit down, Neil. You
So-
seen Harry Jr. lately?
No, I haven't seen him at all.
Uh-huh.
No, I
Well, what
don't
can
know
we
where
do
he
for
is.
you?
Well, You didn't happen to find a big chest that I stuck in the ground around
Full
here,
of treasure? Yes, we did. We did find it. Calvin was mowing the lawn, and he ran right across it.
Was that your chest? Where did you ever get all that wealth?
You mean that wealth belonged to you, Neil?
Wealth?
What were you ever going to do with it, anyway?
No, just a bunch of trinkets. It's carnival stuff, you know. It's all paste jewelry and phony gold bricks and
Slum, you mean?
Yeah, that's what that guy calls it, slum. Carnival slum.
Carnival
Slum, eh?
Well, then it wasn't worth anything, but why go to the trouble of burying it in the yard, and who would want to steal it from our kitchen?
I was going to have some kind of a promotional merchandising gimmick at the House of Toast, and I wanted to weather up the old chest, make it look like it really was in the ground, like a pirate treasure.
Good idea. That could be a good promotion.
Well, that's what I thought.
I was thinking of baseball caps, but this is much better.
Oh, yeah, but, well, some fella talked to me about baseball caps for all 3 leagues.
I think the treasure is a much better idea, though, Neil.
Yeah.
The only question is, where is it now? We left it here on the kitchen table last night. We came down this morning to find it gone.
Aha. Well, now, that has me pretty well confused. And I have to find it because I have this whole merchandising gimmick in the works. I've given them the green light.
Did you tell anybody that you'd buried the treasure?
No, it was my own secret. I don't know who would have taken it.
Well, I certainly don't either. We thought for a while Pop here did because he disappeared about the same time the treasure chest did.
No.
No, it wasn't me. I was over the house.
No, we misunderstood poor Pop. We were I should say we were blaming the wrong person. No, I want to apologize to you, Pop.
Oh, that's okay.
You're as honest as the day is long.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, sir.
Well, we better go about trying to find the whereabouts for you, Neil. You starting this big promotion, you want to have the prizes available.
Well, as I was saying, I gave him the green light there. There's going to be ads in the newspaper. There's going to be flyers and coupons put on people's doorsteps all about the big treasure chest at the House of Toast.
Well, we'd better call the police then.
But first, where is Mary?
And so, our friends learned that the treasure belonged to Neil, that it was part of a campaign for the House of Toast. And where's Mary gone? You want to be here tomorrow when we'll learn more of this mystery, when we hear Calvin say,
She was standing here a few moments ago.
That's tomorrow in the next exciting episode of Mary Backstage Noble Wife. Word Carr speaking. And now, the American Federation of Sheep Herders, representing 14,000 lonely people just like yourself, brings you another episode of The Gathering Dusk. The heartwarming story of a girl who's learned to live with misfortune because she could never learn how to do anything else. As we look in on the Bessinger household today, Edna is making a geometric design with thumbtacks on the downstairs bulletin board. It's early evening, and Mr. Muzzpaw, the village guru and interpreter of the occult, is just arriving.
Oh, it's you, village guru and interpreter of the occult Muzzpaw. I would have met you at the door, but I was afraid I might miss you in case you came floating in through the transom.
Well, no, I don't display supernatural powers myself, Miss Bessinger. I merely serve as the link between those who are still here and those who've gone on before.
Well, my father was in a similar line of work. When he was still here, he arranged to be the link for a mob in Detroit that wanted the whole Watanabe gang to go on before.
Well, I wouldn't say that's similar to what I do at all, ma'am. Your father was hitman for the syndicate. I just charge law-abiding citizens $5 apiece to look into the world beyond.
Well, I really think you'd find that pushing them into the world beyond is a more profitable end of the business. Here, you're working for $5 a throw, and Daddy never got less than $2,000 for a job. That was in the depth of the Depression, too.
Well, I suppose you could live rather well on that amount of income in those days.
No, not really. Daddy's life insurance premiums were terribly high. I think he paid about $20,000 a year for a $500 policy. The insurance company figured that a person in his line of work had a life expectancy of 16 days.
I see. Well,
they also had a special waiver in there that made Daddy's policy void in case he was killed by my brother Waldo. Waldo was a homicidal maniac, and I guess you're considered a bad insurance risk if you have one of those in the family.
Well, I really don't know anything about issuing insurance policies, Miss Bessinger. But I just hope you didn't call me over here to try to make contact with your father or your brother. I'm sure they both wound up in a place where I wouldn't be able to reach them.
No, I'd never ask you to get involved in a family matter like that, village guru and interpreter of the occult muzzpaw. What I'm really more interested in is having you do right now for me is to get Kurt Goudy off my back.
You mean Kurt Goudy, the sportscaster?
Yes, I'd know his voice anywhere, especially when he gets into one of those long stories about a third baseman who fell into a concrete mixer when he was a child, but then overcame the handicap to play in the major leagues. Kurt was telling me all about that from somewhere in the great beyond just before you came in.
Oh, Miss Bessinger, Kurt Goudy couldn't be speaking to you from the great beyond. He's very much alive.
Well, I'm sure it was his voice, and for a minute there I thought I heard the voice of Tony Kubek, too. Right now, all I'm receiving from the great beyond is some man's voice trying to sell me radial tires. I think Kurt Goudy said it's between innings over there.
Miss Bessinger, Kurt Goudy is not in the great beyond, and neither are those other people you're talking about. But I think I see what your trouble is now that you've turned your head this way. You've got a transistor radio in your apron pocket, and then there's a cord running up from it to a plastic plug in your ear.
Glory be. I'll just bet that could explain the whole mysterious situation, village guru and interpreter of the occult muzzpaw. I remember now that I put the earpiece in there this morning so I could hear the latest rhythm and blues selections while I was mowing the front lawn. But as soon as it got dark, I started getting messages from Kurt Goudy, and he's been going on ever since. My stars. It's a relief to know that Kurt's not trying to bother me from some other world. I suddenly feel as if I'm no longer standing in the gathering dusk.
Can it be that Edna will now step through the doorway to real happiness, having at last found a way to make Kurt Goudy leave her alone? Or will it only lead to further heartbreak when she realizes that nobody at all is talking to her now that the radio is shut off? Be sure to join us for the next episode when Edna may be forced to resume her conversation with the goldfish in the gathering dusk.